petition and going and circulating it because they care about this issue. It's that important. And I'm really proud of these signatures and every person who went out there and got signatures. It's amazing. I am inspired by all of you. I'm going to introduce Representative Tom McMillin, but I want to just point out that you can also come afterwards to this bill, this pile right here. The pile of blue. That's the healthcare law that was signed into and you really couldn't get a grasp of what that's about unless you had the Social Security Act, the Health and Human Services Act, and the IRS Code. If you had all four of those documents laid out, you could then flip through and try to get your mind around what they have done. And that's a very scary proposition because the tentacles of this bill go so far and are so far and wide-reaching, and I don't think we're going to find out for 10 years the full implications of this law. It's going to be devastating, and it's going to affect every person in our country. I thought about what Barack Obama might say if he was standing here, and he'd say, and I'm not going to try to impersonate him, I'm terrible at it, he'd say, we didn't fail, we just didn't succeed enough. So that's kind of where we're going to go with it. We have been talking about what we would do next if we needed to, if we didn't cross the finish line, and I'm going to bring Tom McMillin up to kind of talk about what some of the options, what we are going to do for sure, and then some of the options we have as we move forward. So Representative Tom McMillin, who's been a great supporter of the community as well.
I'm going to address one thing that we're going to leave open as an option, and then one thing that we're definitely going to do. If we leave open as an option, there's over 150, I would say 150,000. Some are still coming in because they didn't realize the deadline, and they're still coming in. I would say that at the end we're probably going to reach about 175. If we get these if we mail each one of these people again and say, just sign it and get one more person, we'll almost be there. And so, we launched this very quickly because nobody dreamed they'd do what they did Sunday at midnight on the 21st of March. We really didn't think that was going to happen. So we launched it quickly. But with a little bit more money, and letting people know this is kind of a head start, I think we can definitely go in the direction, get on the ballot in 2012. If that's the direction we want. So that's a possibility that we are very much going to leave open. But there's a thing that we're definitely going to do. And for this, I wanted to also bring up Senator Kuipers, who was a leader in the Senate on the Senate, the constitutional amendment in the Senate. He sponsored the legislation and actually got a couple Democrats to cross over and vote, and almost got the 2/3 required in the Senate. And so Senator Kuipers Senator Kuipers is going to introduce the same exact language that was on the petition drive in bill form to get it into law. Now, there are other states that are doing this that have already done it. Virginia, Idaho, and Arizona have put it in as a law, which is, a constitutional amendment means that legislators can't change it. The law, if we can get it in, it still has a very similar effect. It will give us the basis to fight for our rights here as Michigan citizens. And so we feel that getting this through the House and the Senate and getting it signed into law would be very important. And I want to make one thing clear for the press that are here. They got it wrong in the beginning. This does not opt out Michigan. Some people said, a bunch of cessationists. All that constitutional amendment does and all this bill will do is allow our citizens individually to opt out if they want. It gives them a choice. There's no opting out the state and trying to secede. It gives our people a choice so that they can't, look, Washington can't come between us and our doctor and start telling our doctors that this you can't do and this you can't do and these people are too old to have that surgery or whatever. That it stops and makes sure that people don't just have to buy Obamacare, but they would have freedom. They can opt out of Obamacare and look for other ways to have their own health care, and that's their responsibility. And so that's what this does. I'll finish up at Senator Kuipers if you wanted to say anything as well.
Thank you, Tom. And thanks to all of you who were so aggressive in collecting signatures. The constitutional amendment that I introduced was back in August, long before Congress decided to do what they ultimately did. They were talking about it, but at that point, I don't think any of us believed that they would actually have the courage or the lack of foresight to do what they did. But in fact, they did. We had the constitutional amendment up for a vote. It came through committee. It was on the Senate floor. It is still on the Senate floor. We were able to get 2 brave Democrats to cross over. All the Republicans on the Senate side voted in favor of the constitutional amendment. We needed 26 to pass it out of our chamber. We ended up with 23. It's still a live bill in the Senate. There's a chance that it could come up for another vote. We've worked all of the Democrats who hadn't supported it and to see if there was any wiggle room in their opinion or their position, and none of them gave us a nod of any kind. So what Tom and I are prepared to do is reintroduce the legislation, this time in statute form, and I think we'll get the numbers on the Senate side to pass this through the Senate, and we'll see what Tom is able to do on the House side. I think he's wise in opening the door up for the Speaker to come on as the lead sponsor of the legislation. I will tell you, for those of you who don't think that citizens of Michigan are in tune with this, I will tell you, think again. And I'm a candidate now for Congress, so I'm doing a lot of doors and getting out in front of a lot of groups of people. It is the topic of discussion at just about every doorstep that I stand on. And people have not forgotten this, and they're angry. They're frustrated, they don't know exactly what to do. Well, this is step one. Okay, we're hoping that we can pass this through the legislature, both the House and the Senate. It's uncertain what the governor will do, but hopefully if enough pressure comes down on her office, she'll do the right thing and sign this legislation for the citizens of Michigan. There's also one other step that some people are forgetting. Our Attorney General, Mike Cox, has enjoined Michigan with a number of other states, and that lawsuit is still ongoing. We're very hopeful that at some point the issue will get brought to the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court will ultimately decide whether or not this 1,000-page monster is in fact constitutional. I believe it's not on a number of fronts. Ultimately, that would be left up to the Supreme Court to make that determination. I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing out of what I hope will be Speaker Boehner. He has indicated that the repeal is highly unlikely since that would require a signature by the President. But true to his word, and I believe he is, one option that Congress has is to not fund the monstrosity that this is, which means that the IRS won't be allowed to expand. Agencies that are created as part of this bill won't be allowed to be formed. So if you cut off the funding, the hope would be that the legislation would go away. So I'm still very encouraged. I don't think this fight is over by any means. We didn't collect the number of signatures we hoped to, but I think it's a good first step. And we're going to continue to keep this issue red hot in Michigan. And I would challenge all of you, as candidates come to your door, the first question you ought to ask them is, where are you at on health care? Okay, put them on record. Thank you.
And I wanted